The microphone.
Okay.
This will come to you. And small business is the backbone of our economy in South Carolina, but economic development incentives are geared towards large companies that invest more than $2.5 million or create a certain number of jobs. Should the state consider lowering some of the thresholds to assist more small businesses with expansion opportunities?
Yes, and just as I said in the Act 388 discussion, when Act 388 was enacted, it ended up putting a huge burden on small businesses and making local government the bad guys because they had to increase property taxes where they could, and small business was the only area that didn't have a cap. And so small business, if you think about it, the people who have small businesses, I have a small business, I live here. I make my money here. When money comes into me, I then spend it here. When we recruit a large company that has a home office somewhere else, most of their profits are leaving Lancaster County, going to that home office area, and they're being spent outside of Lancaster County. So why in the world would we not give our small businesses some proportionate incentives to what we give to these larger companies that take money outside of Lancaster County? When you think about small businesses in Lancaster County are creating more jobs in total than many of these larger businesses that we recruit, that we give job development tax credits to. And it's not the county giving those, it's the state, it's the Department of Commerce. But we need to focus on the people who are living here, who have taken that leap of faith to start their own business, and who need some help from their government.
Mr. Coy.
Yes, it's time to actually start lowering some of the property taxes on the businesses. To go ahead and get the renters to actually be able to get in the houses. I know there's a guy here that has rental houses, and that's one of his biggest complaints. When we actually look at some of the businesses on the growth, I think it is time to lower the taxes, let them grow, and actually give the credits on the companies that are building wealth, not the retailers.
Mr. Payne.
How long do I get for this? I'm going to need it because incentives are kind of the thing that got me fired up to get in the race. A couple years ago, we had Amazon. They were going to come to Lexington. And in return for them graciously coming to Lexington, all we had to do was give them a 5-year sales tax exemption. And when a Senator, Larry Grooms, from the Low Country, introduced a bill into the Senate to give every business in the state of South Carolina the same tax deal Amazon would have got, it was shot down by the Senate. And that was the point where I said, we need someone who's going to fight for small business owners down in Columbia. And so I think if we're going to continue the incentives, absolutely we need to lower it. But I want to have a much larger conversation about incentives in general. 1998, we gave out $34 million in targeted tax incentives. And in 2010, we gave out over $1 billion. But since then, per capita income decreased, unemployment increased. And so what I would like to see us is create a fair tax environment for everyone. And I say let's lower all the loopholes that we've given out in our sales tax system. Let's cut our sales tax rates from 6% to 3% to lower the cost of doing business in South Carolina. Let's cut income taxes by 2% across the board. And then let's find a way to work together to pass comprehensive income tax reform. And let's work to phase out the manufacturing property tax, which is 10.5%. In South Carolina. It's one of the highest in the South, and you can't expect to attract new business owners to Lancaster if you don't have the right tax environment, and you can't expect existing business owners to stay here if you don't have the right tax environment. And one of the big things that I've seen in Columbia over the last couple of years is that we've actually shifted the tax burden to existing business owners when we try to incentivize other companies to come to South Carolina. And what it's doing is it's running existing small business owners out of town at the expense for much larger companies to come to places like Lexington, Charleston, and Greenville. And so we need to create that fair tax environment where everyone will come to grow in their own way. So.
Ms. Powers-Norrell.
I think we started segueing into tax reform, so I'd like to get a piece of that if I can.
Oh, definitely. And Mr. Coy will give you the same
okay.
opportunity.
As Mr. Payne said, our manufacturing rate is 10.5%. That is the highest in the country, and we do need to lower that to 6%. But South Carolina overall is a low tax state. I think that we rank the 5th lowest in the nation overall. So if we reduce taxes without looking at the whole picture, we're going to reduce the ability of government to do what it needs to do, which is keep our roads in good condition, educate our children, and provide law enforcement. So we have to look at the tax code as a whole. Yes, I agree. We need to reduce the manufacturing rate. But many of our companies don't pay that rate anyway because they're getting a fee in lieu of taxes. And every one of those is negotiated differently behind closed doors, and it is an unfair system. But again, if you look at one thing and you don't look at the tax structure as a whole, you might make a bad situation worse, just like with Act 388. It created it ended up putting the burden on local government and making them look like the bad guys. So if we need a plan for making up the revenue, if we're going to reduce the manufacturing rate, which I agree that we need to do, and we do that by fixing our tax loopholes.
Mr. Coy, did you want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I want to do this anyway. So, and I'll let you, Mr. Payne, I'll let you have another minute. But I want to go back to my original question. But I'm going to take the politician out of all of you. You only get to say yes or no. So, should the state consider lowering the threshold of 2.5 million and the creation of a certain number of jobs for small business to have expansion opportunities? Mr. Coy, yes or no? Yes. Ms. Powers-Norrell? Yes. Mr. Payne? Yes. Anybody want to add anything to that now? Mr. Payne? Yes.
I just want to add, we actually do have one of the highest sales taxes in the nation. New York, who we often hear has the highest taxes in the nation, actually has a lower sales tax than we do. North Carolina has a lower sales tax than we do, and Georgia has a lower sales tax than we do. And I think my plan is actually revenue neutral. And if you're taking in $2.3 billion and you're giving out $2.5 billion, if you close it all together and tax it all at 3%, it seems like it's still bringing the same thing. I'd also like to add that Speaker Harrell has a really great stat that he says we have the lowest taxes in the nation. And actually what he means is we bring in the fewest amount of tax dollars. And just because you bring in the fewest amount of tax dollars does not mean that you have the lowest taxes in the nation.
Any other comments on the panel? Okay, then, Mr. Coy?
I've heard about the sales tax on New York. If we go ahead and look at New York, they also have a real estate tax. I'm sorry, their property tax. For the same house, I'm paying about $600 a year on property tax. They're paying right around $6,000. I'd rather pay a little bit more in my sales tax than my property tax, so that way outsiders that are coming in can help us foot the bill.
Okay, for the next question.